Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Welcome to Adeptus On-Air. I'm Evan Eneman, your host for today, and I am chatting with Matthew Hoffman, the founder and CEO of Trusted Advisor. Welcome, Matthew. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Evan. Glad to be here. I am great. Good
to hear. Well, let's get started. Why don't you give a brief introduction of Trusted Advisor and what you're doing with that platform?
Absolutely. I've somehow fallen into the space over a couple different professional journeys. But I'll start with Trusted Advisor, and maybe throughout the 30 minutes, we'll kind of work our way back a little bit too. Right. I founded Trusted Advisor about 3 years ago. I had the idea in very early 2020 and started to do some research around hosting and launching a membership organization for entertainment, music, and sports advisors. And then, of course, March 2020 rolls around, COVID hit, had to put the plans on the back burner a little bit and wait. But we ended up launching Trusted Advisor in August of 2020, obviously virtually. We had to operate virtually for, I think, a bit over a year. Started out with a number of conferences diving into music and royalties and client security and, all sorts of stuff. And ended up doing our first in-person event towards the end of 2021. And since then have really picked up frequency. At this point right now, we're hosting, I think, about 8 to 10 events every month. We're very active in New York, LA, Nashville, Miami, and Atlanta. We host, I think, what tend to be pretty intimate events. Again, just laser focused on entertainment, music, and sports advisors. Those are the professionals running around behind the scenes with these types of clients doing all sorts of things. So it's a lot of CPAs, like folks at Adeptus, and entertainment and music attorneys. That's kind of the core of the group. And then we have a lot of people on the funding side, on fine art consulting, real estate banking, all sorts of finance and tax related issues. Royalties and international touring. I mean, there's a really long tail. And that's kind of what attracted me to this space, right? Is that we could be focused on these core clients, but that, the reality of music and entertainment is that it's incredibly diverse and that these clients can, monetize and really build out their business in a lot of very interesting ways that are, catered to their own personality and what they do and their strengths and their fan base. So it's fun to work with all of the advisors in that space and bring them together around the country and just kind of keep growing out the network. For us, it's slow and steady. We like to keep things pretty tight and really make sure, I think, that everyone involved is trusted. It's in the name, right? We didn't venture too far out with our branding, just kind of keep doing it and giving everyone in the space opportunities to meet each other, to share knowledge, and build relationships.
That's great. Incredible platform, and certainly have some experience with it through partners at the firm. And just going to your point, so you have this name, Trusted Advisor. Mm-hmm. Let's maybe step back. I know we talked about sort of going back to where you started, and you have a pretty interesting background in where you actually started as a trained architect. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an architect. I'm not a trained architect. I took mechanical drawing in high school. I loved it. But one thing that is apparent in some of the work that we do on the advisory side is around a brand architecture, right? This foundational element of how we build relationships, ultimately a trust relationship. Mm-hmm. Maybe give some perspective from you on terms of where you started and, why that experience you feel like led you down the path to what you're doing now, helping to create community around athletes, entertainers, people that need trusted advisors around them to provide guidance, really more so than anything else.
Yeah, very good question. So I was a trained architect. I worked for about 4 years at an architecture firm here in New York, and didn't love the practice of architecture, but what I'll say that I took from it, I think the education was very good. And what prepared me there was, um, as architects, you you also need to be kind of a master of all trades, or at least you need to build out a team. So you have the engineering, you have the client, you have budget, you have manufacturers, you're dealing with the government, local government, zoning. And so architecture as a kind of career is, yeah, you need to know legal, budget, structure, design and pitching, marketing. And so, it's interesting. I didn't love it because I didn't want to spend 5 years in AutoCAD on a single staircase, until the project actually went up. It's a very slow profession. But I took a lot from it. And my career, though, so originally when I graduated and I was working as an architect, I started working with a big single family office in Los Angeles. I didn't know what a single family office was. It took me a little bit to to figure that out. And it was a real estate family. I did a number of projects and ended up consulting with them and kind of helping them organize themselves internally. And they were going through a generational transition. I got familiar with their accountants, with their attorneys, and kind of that similar sense of the team for, from the client side, really. Worked with them for a long time and ended up, first it started really as us surveying the space for software that could help us aggregate the family's holdings. And that was across the business side of real estate, but it was also across a lot of estate planning information and pretty complex trust structure, insurance, tangible assets, art, jewelry, collectibles, and couldn't find anything. And so I didn't know what I was doing. And, it was kind of a big experiment, but we ended up building a tech platform to help aggregate that family's holdings. And so that took a number of years. And eventually we had something, started showing some people. There was a lot of interest in it. And so we decided to set out and commercialize it. And so then I made the leap from architecture. I basically took over running that company. This is around 2015 and 16. I was flying out to LA because that's where the family was. That's where some of the initial interest started. Meet anyone I could, didn't know what the hell I was doing, raised some money somehow. And largely, though, I ended up just through trial and error falling into this space with folks like Jennifer Coyne, who's at Adeptus, the business managers. The family that I came from was very accounting focused. Frankly, between us, don't tell everyone else that's listening here, but we always found that the accountants are incredibly close with clients. They see everything, and they typically serve as the quarterback. I think, especially in the entertainment and music and sports space, right? So they're not just doing accounting and tax returns. They're doing bill pay. They're helping manage staff, large purchases, tour accounting, royalties accounting, international stuff, starting businesses, like all these clients really are kind of like media companies themselves, and the business manager is handling a lot of that. So I fell into the space for 5 years, built up the tech, but really I was building a lot of relationships and kind of figuring out how particularly the business managers worked with clients, and really kind of fell in love with that space because, like I said earlier, it can, it's very client dependent. It can go a million different ways, and the business manager has to be really adept at a very wide range of things. And they have to have a really good team around them internally, like at Adeptus with different folks on the royalty side and tax and whatnot, audit, but also externally for real estate people, bankers, funding opportunity, all sorts of stuff, right? Keeping them out of the trouble and out of the press. And so that's where I started to meet a lot of other people that do those things. And, this kind of tool belt around these clients and advisors. And that's how we got to where we are today. So it's like fallen into a couple different careers, but I think, I guess, like you said, there are some similarities somehow to architecture back in the day. But now, we're up and running and just very focused on kind of growing out this network that we have here with, folks like the wonderful people you have at Adeptus.
Yeah, that's great. It's an interesting story, and certainly the way you have framed it around, first learning around this single family office and what that even means, and the dynamic of how you really are quarterbacking a team and understanding what the team, the purpose is, what the ultimate, goal is. And in certain cases, it might be winning a championship. Well, that's the sports analogy, but what are you doing in your professional life or in your brand life? And as an entertainer or an athlete, you have different career objectives, both on field and then off the field. And certainly when you start to think about those different phases of your career, your life, you might need different professionals, different trusted advisors along the way. And I think how you just mentioned that journey from you from trained architect to tech entrepreneur, VC back, to helping to create this almost organizational framework for highly skilled, highly talented executives, artists, entertainers, athletes is really important. I mean, this is a critical part of their well-being, not just financial well-being, but their broad well-being. And it's a really needed area. So I, appreciate what you've been building out. I appreciate the patience you've taken from, you talk about architecture being a slow moving industry. Building trust is a slow moving process. And it sounds like the way you're going about it is exactly that. It's these years worth of relationships that you've been building to support potential clients, or ways that these trusted advisors can then help their clients. And ultimately that's what the goal is. Where do you see this practice going for you? Do you have a team that you've built? Is there a dynamic in now bringing in your own dedicated team members to help build out the trusted advisor network? How does that work within your organization?
Yeah, twofold. So we're a lean, mean team of 5. And bootstrapped it, didn't raise money. I did the whole VC thing before. And I think what I took away from my startup days, the tech startup that I didn't particularly enjoy, was as soon as you're getting outside capital like that, especially from VCs, they're looking for really like a hockey stick trajectory, and they want to see a lot of serious growth. And exactly, you totally just nailed it on the head. This is a slow and also not a huge space. Like there are, it's certainly not like B2C consumer, right? You're not talking millions and millions of business managers out there. It's a small space, and it takes time, and it's slow. And I didn't want to have to answer to anything like that, right? And kind of grow it out our way. And frankly, too, and we're still very much in the midst of this. It still feels like very early days for us. But I think, we're taking, a lot of feedback from everyone involved. As we go, as we build it out. And I think there's a pretty tight feedback loop that we operate with all of our members and folks that is involved. That's really helped guide us a lot. And I think we don't know exactly where that's going to take us yet. But a couple of things. So I mentioned, I have my team, and a big part of that is we've really increased the frequency of our events. And it's the same. It's trust-wise. It's like, you're not going to build super deep relationships if I'm only in LA every 6 months hosting events, right? It takes frequency. You need to meet people multiple times, 3, 4, before you're, you have kind of a rapport, you go out to lunch, you really get to kind of know them on a deeper level. And then I think that's where we see then they do start to work and have these relationships, right? So that's what we want to facilitate. So I think the frequency of events, doing a lot of like kind of lightweight, small, social events is really important. So we don't do a lot of like big stuffy kind of 3-day Vegas conferences. That's not us. It's meeting the advisors where they are, super social, a lot of like outdoors things. I think people network a little bit differently than they used to even pre-COVID. And so we're focused on that. And then the other thing that's really helped us out that we set up probably around 2 years ago with folks like Jennifer, right? So we have a big Jennifer Coyne, I'm referring to it at Adeptus, right? We have a big advisory board. I think it's about 45 folks around the US, a lot of people that I've known for years since my startup days, that are, very legitimate music, entertainment, and sports advisors. And, they form our advisory board. We've been inviting them. We still keep adding folks periodically. But that's kind of our core. That's given us a lot of inspiration and guidance as we've grown. They help invite colleagues, other folks that they trust, because the reality is, my team and myself, we're not touching the end clients. It's important that folks are vetted, right? So when people join, I'm often pinging different members of our advisory board, maybe that I see that they're connected with, just as a kind of check, to make sure. I think that in our growth that we're still attracting a pretty, high caliber of folks and don't get too diluted, right? So that's what we do with our advisory board. They also help guide us a lot, like on topics. What are they seeing? What are clients seeing? How is this year different than last year? It's it's incredibly fluid through COVID and after COVID. But even outside of that, I think just the way that the business evolves happens pretty rapidly. Right now, we're going down the rabbit hole on the sports side and how athlete clients are different. And so I've been talking to Jennifer about that, about what she's seeing with her clients on the sports side. And we're gearing up for a big sports summit that we're going to do in Miami. So part of it is us curating this network of kind of like-minded advisors. And then part of it is kind of working with folks like Jennifer and our advisory board, because they're the ones that are really in the trenches around these topics that can really speak to a very detailed level about tax, legal implications, like all sorts of, that's not stuff we can find the people, that know those things. But, ultimately it's the advisors that are the ones in the weeds and that we kind of curate to bring everyone together.
Yeah, that's excellent. Athletes are definitely a unique breed just because of the longevity of their active career or lack thereof, depending on the sport and if it's professional versus semi-professional. I mean, there's so many different dynamics of that, which is really interesting. And to your point, they are the brand, and how do you build teams around them? And obviously a full-on sports summit is one that's important. We're actually doing an event or programming an event down in Miami as well later this year that ties in a lot of these emerging areas that athletes are interested in: psychedelics, cannabis, emerging markets like Web3 and NFT and all these different other creative endeavors, which, as an athlete, someone who wants to explore what their options are, having that advisory network is really important, because these are interesting opportunities, but they have potential pitfalls as well as much as they're interesting opportunities. So really interesting to hear that. And it sounds like you have a lot going on, and you're launching a lot right now that is really relevant and topical. Can you speak a little bit? You launched recently an LA chapter for Trusted Women in Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to these programs within the larger program? So you have the Trusted Advisor Network, but you're also carving out these niche areas that are really critically important to the Trusted Advisor Network and really the broader community of entertainers, athletes, musicians that are out there and need that support.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we got started, a lot of my personal network was in LA. So for the first year or two, we were very LA focused. Then about a year ago, we set out to kind of spin up and duplicate what we were doing in LA and New York, Atlanta, Nashville, and Miami. And so those have been growing. We've been growing those chapters pretty heavily over the last year or so. And we've always had this idea for more intimate groups around, curated topics. There's different flavors of advisors. Some folks are very music focused, some are sports focused, and there's a lot of difference there. Some similarities too. So it's nice to do big events like, say, our sports summit, where we will also have a lot of music and entertainment people, but that will kind of specifically dive into, unique challenges and opportunities working with pro athletes. The women in entertainment, I think many of our members and advisory board members have been putting that, worm in our ear for probably a year about spinning that up. And so it's been on our radar for a long time. For us, it's mostly about kind of growing and, finding the right venues to be hosting stuff out. So there's a lot of logistical things that take us some time to figure out. But we did launch Women in Entertainment in LA, I think in like April. And I just flew back. I was there. I'm kind of a fly on the wall, but I was there last week. We hosted, I think, the third one in LA. I'm the videographer is what I say. And
you gotta have multiple perspectives, so it's good.
Yeah.
You may have found it at all. Having that bird's eye view helps sometimes.
Yeah, we're still a lean, mean team, so it's like I got to roll up my sleeves. It's very DIY over here.
Absolutely.
And then it's grown incredibly. So we always kind of joke, there's some math. So like if we're hosting an event, we get 100 signups, usually, 75 or 80 show up. Like you get a drop off rate. What we noticed with Women in Entertainment is we get 50 signups, 50 people show up. It's like everyone's on time. Everyone is hyped about it. I just think there was a crazy need. I think a lot of these women, so we have like multiple sports agents, even Jennifer, I've spoken to her about this, being in the sports space, a lot of them came up in, very, very male dominated industries. And that could be in the legal side. It can be on the sports side as agents. I mean, because again, it's a wide range of professions, but it kind of carries across. There's a shared experience there. And so it just immediately took off, and it's been a lot of fun to host that. And I think that's very much a an experiment that every time we host an event, we're pinging everyone. We get on a Zoom call with all of the attendees, all of the members of Women in Entertainment. We brainstorm about what are we going to do next time? What kind of format? Are we doing breakout groups? Are we doing talks? Do you just want to meet each other and just kind of keep it social? Olivia from my team is kind of running the show there. And it's been a lot of fun. And I think, we'll gear that up probably for like a Women in Entertainment Summit in early next year. And then we also launched that in New York a couple months ago. And I think we'll launch it in the other cities. And it's just a matter of, us trying to stay ahead of our events calendar a bit. But yeah, I think we'll definitely keep doing that. I think that could be pretty large, in the end. I think that it's already really on a roll, and we get a lot of intros from that, and folks inviting other people that they work with. And I think we'll look at perhaps doing other smaller chapter events too. I guess the overarching thing here is that we find a ton of value in doing small events, where it could be us gathering 10 to 15 people up to like 25 to 30 is kind of a sweet spot, where you go to an event, you typically recognize some people because it's a small space, you get to meet others, and you can kind of meet everyone. Like, it's not too big and daunting. It's not like a, 500, sometimes you go to these huge conferences and like, you don't know even where to start. It's too big.
Not the 5-minute speed networking routine. It's a deeper relationship you're creating.
Exactly. And then they get to come out and meet each other again in a month and talk about progress and all sorts of stuff, remind themselves of certain things that they're working on. So, so we're spending a lot of time and energy on that.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, and you brought up, something that we can talk about a little bit. I know we don't have a ton of time, but the ability for certain people to honor commitment very well and very consistently in this category, as an area, and just seeing what's been happening recently. I know we just had, a film and entertainment property that came out that has caused a lot of sort of noise around the conversation. Barbie is the film, and around what that really was representing. Is it this, children's toy, or is it a real story about, professionalism and sort of women in the world and this proper place that they should have had in these male dominated fields? Sports, definitely male dominated, and still is in many ways. And coming up as a woman in sports, whether it's a sportscaster, an analyst, a professional supporting athletes, really difficult because there's no mentor network. There's no mentor-mentee network. There's no one that's really historically lifting you up to these different paths. And so I think it's great that you're providing this platform for advisors that are, I'm sure looking for ways to gain more traction, to show why they are trusted advisors, and maybe more so should be trusted than others out there in the network.
Exactly.
Are you seeing anything that is coming out of that effort in this, women in entertainment or the demographic that you have there, that's lending more credibility to the consistency of your programming? So you made a point. If we schedule 120 people and 80 show up, that impacts attendees. Well, I don't know who's really attending versus 50 sign up, 50 show up.
Yep.
You know what you're signing up for, you know what you're getting. I would think that that's a great way to bring more people in, to say we have a very engaged, almost 100% in certain niche categories engagement level. And that's huge as you're building trust. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's, I've worked at other media companies in the past. I glazed over it. I've worked kind of in some architecture and design media. I've done conferences at some other events before. So I come from a bit of an events and media background. And so I know, I've spent 12 years, 13 years looking at media kits, kind of understanding how that entire business model works. And we're really not that. There's a model there sponsorship wise, right, where a lot of these conferences exist. They're selling sponsorships, they're supplying leads, they're selling tickets, and we purposefully don't do any of that. We don't sell tickets, we don't do sponsorships, and we're involving our members, right? So everything that we do revenue wise runs through the lens of membership. And I think that was a really important shift that we made about a year and a half, 2 years ago, was to get everyone on the same page, because everyone's interest is aligned. You're out there to build relationships. Jennifer, multiple people at Adeptus have been at our events for a long time. And I think long enough now that I know that they've built relationships, that they've started, referring business back and forth. Often people will ping us and my team to, for unique situations. Sometimes I just had someone ping me about like a really sensitive security issue, and they were asking for someone that is familiar with dealing with that with high profile clients, or maybe a little less dramatic with someone asking for an estate planning person in Texas, right? So like that's pretty specific. It's hard to kind of find that. And I think we've grown out our network. And what's really nice about this that I think is different than other companies is it's really, like you said, it's always the same people. And I think same people, but growing. But it's a lot of, you can kind of tell, like when we host events, it's incredibly friendly. Like if I've been to a lot of networking events over the years, and it's incredibly daunting to walk into a place and not know anyone. And it's like, it feels really forced. You got people with name badges. You're trying to kind of hunt, like you've been sent by your job to wherever, Chicago, to some 2-day conference. You're trying to bag a bunch of leads and like prove to your team that you can, and it's like, and when everyone's in the same boat, it's like, it's not natural. And then you're getting on calls afterwards and it still feels forced. And you're just like trying to kind of shove these deals down and get business and whatever. And I think we've been able to grow our network in a way that really avoids that there's not that pressure. It's social. People aren't being pitched. And, it's slow. It's focused on knowledge and just like working with people that you like and people that, similar stages of their career. One thing that I wanted to touch on, I think very long-term for us, what we find most of the people in this group, business managers in particular, most of them fall into it. Not a lot of people become CPAs because they want to work with professional athletes or movie stars. Like a lot of people don't know that this space exists. Like even the term business manager is very strange. In the long run for us, I know that there's a lack of talent, I'd say. I know that it's very tough for firms to hire because there aren't as many CPAs as there used to. There aren't as many, entertainment and music. Like it affects a lot of these spaces. And I think if we at Trusted Advisor can be a part of basically building the platform that shares a lot of this knowledge and opportunity, I think on a wider level with, say, younger folks coming up. So, that's something that I think we're wrapping our heads around how we can do that, because I think that that'll be a bit of a new adventure for us. So far, we've been just very focused on kind of people already in the space. But I do think in the long run, I think we're trying to kind of put together a platform where we can help promote this to a wider audience and I think help attract younger CPAs, young attorneys, young managers, and show them that there's this career, I'd say on the business side, working with all of these interesting folks kind of in the, behind the scenes, maybe sometimes not always, but I think, in the long run, that's not going to be something that we solve by the end of the year or anything like that. But that's kind of where our head's at, I think, big picture wise with Trusted Advisor.
And that's great. And it's a huge need. You're right. It is very difficult to find high quality talent in these professions, specifically in accounting. And then also with the awareness of business management as a career, to your point, it's confusing. Are you a manager? You're a business. What exactly is that? So there is some confusion there, but giving earlier professionals or people that are still in school, whether it's a 5 years master's program, understanding there is a career path to take to do things that are interesting. Maybe you're not into manufacturing t-shirts as your career and auditing that, but you might be interested in the artist who wears different fashion apparel and what that would look like as a career path. And that's where you can get interest in people to re-engage in a profession that is very, very needed, especially as we see more, I would say, these emerging opportunities that have little to no oversight and regulation or historical precedent to how to navigate it. And again, we're talking about protecting livelihoods and commercial viability of artists, entertainers, athletes.
Yep.
You need young talent to come up at some point to support that area of expertise. So,
yeah,
I know we just have a couple minutes left and really appreciate what you're doing as a platform. I use platform a lot because what you're building is a trusted advisor, a network, and a platform. And really using these educational initiatives and tools and sessions to bring people together. So really appreciate that. What are some of the key takeaways that you would like our audience to have around what you've been building? And certainly feel free to include any of your social handles where people can find you. What are some of those things that you'd like for people to take away from this conversation?
I feel like most of the people that we come across, I think, have their head in the right spot. I think, I think the reason that Trusted Advisor has worked was just simply because there was a need. I think there was a need for more social interactions between people in this group that frankly wasn't happening before. No one else was really out there hosting stuff like this before. And that's why I think it's happened really naturally. I think, we are in LA every month, hosting multiple events, New York, the other cities. For folks that are in the space that want to come check out an event, like we're always happy to do that, right? Typically, like to have people come attend an event before they sign up as members, because then, they get a sense of who it is and what it is. All right, we're not out there trying to lock everyone out. I think we are trying to stay focused on advisors in this space, right? But I think just open invite for folks listening. If they want to check out an event, let us know. People can email me. I'm very close. I like to stay in touch with everyone. I like to know, what all of our members do and what they're dealing with. And then, we kind of operate like the glue between a lot of folks. My email is matthew@trustedadvisor.la. We're super active on LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn a lot. So I think if you just search Trusted Advisor on LinkedIn, you'll find us. We're always posting our upcoming events and a lot of member features and, different kind of prompts around topics there. And then our website obviously is trustedadvisor.la too, where folks can sign up. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out on Wednesdays that has all of our upcoming events and also a lot of industry news and things affecting, clients and advisors in this space, from, tax and regulations and legal and the music biz and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, hopefully multiple ways to reach out, and, love it. We like, we like the one-on-one connections in between all of our events. We spend a lot of time kind of individually with members too, just to check in, see where they are, see how we can help, and, just kind of connect people, I'd say, in between all of our events. So we like that.
Awesome. Yeah, we love it. Well, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you again for joining us on Adeptus On-Air. And thank you, Matthew Hoffman, our guest, founder and CEO from Trusted Advisor. Keep doing what you're doing and supporting the community, and look forward to connecting again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Evan.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Yep. You too.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.